Hello, trading has closed on September 20th, 2021. Our disclaimer always starts things off, so let's do that. This is my trading plan for Tuesday, September 21st, 2021. As always, I can be completely wrong, and the trade you take should be at your own risk. We had mixed signals at Friday's close. Commonest thing is a gap and a prompt move outside the day's range. We certainly got that. This is what we said. We said bears need to gap under the low and continue dropping to keep the momentum intact. Anything less than that should lead to a decent rally, which I didn't think would last very long. Well, the bears did what they had to do, and that was a pretty big drop. Well, it's the biggest drop we've had in quite some time. We had some higher toe. This is the pattern with the early low, and tomorrow's pattern should also have the early low. Now we had some targets, 44.51.16, 44.40.95. We gapped sharply down, so according to the rules, these targets should still print, but as far as the time frame goes, there's no call for them to print today. Obviously, we never came close. We do get to cross an old target off the list, 43.61.23. This printed almost 2 months ago, July 22nd. Note we had support, which broke. We rallied right into resistance. The market never forgets these numbers. We do have some other numbers I think we'll print before this is over. 42.14.73, 41.37.91, 4,737, 3,701.75. How likely are these numbers to print? Well, there's nothing in the system requiring to print now, but this is a major break, and if they don't print now, then it probably isn't as major as I think it is. Let's look at some other things, get some confirmation of that opinion. I will say this, I developed a system in 2002. Through the end of last year, we have 18 years, but I'm not counting 2021 because the year's not over. 18 years of the system, and in 11 of those 18 years, every single target printed. So that isn't 100%, but it certainly is more than half. And even the lowest target here in percentage terms isn't really all that far away from where we are now. During the day, MEJT said this rally was false, would retrace. As we're dropping to new lows, MEJT said it was false, would retrace, and that happens. Now, DeMark's stuff really hasn't worked for some time, but it doesn't fail every time. And this signal he gave really nailed the high right to the day. So let's see what his stuff says. This was a 9-13-9 sell signal right at the high. If you're going to have a catastrophe, if you're going to have a catastrophic collapse, you want to see us undercut this low within 3 bars. Obviously, that's not going to happen. And he has support at and under this line. We also printed a bar here completely under the lower Bollinger Band. I'm always leery of oversold conditions early in the drop. When you've been dropping for a long time, an oversold condition can mark a low. But if it's early in the decline, it can just mean the decline has a long way to go. We'll just notice that usually when you're under the Bollinger Band by a whole bar, usually it isn't a good time to initiate a new short position. Every once in a while, though, the market forgets this and collapses. Well, that was the daily chart. This is the weekly chart. Once again, we have a 9-13-9 9 sell signal. This wasn't right at the top. If you're going to have a total disaster, he wants to see this line undercut within 3 bars. That didn't happen. And again, we have support at and under the 4,200, just as actually 4173. Well, that's the daily, that's the weekly. Here's the monthly, and this is kind of a different story. This is bar 13 of a combo sell signal. To have a total collapse, you want to undercut this bar here within 3 bars. Well, this bar hasn't even completed yet. Bar 13 completes it, and it can finish early. We printed a new high, it finished early. So we have until the end of the year to undercut 29.65.24. That would be quite a drop, but that's not unheard of. And I don't think it's going to happen. But if it happens, there's no telling how low we're going to go. When you have daily, weekly, and monthly sell signals all in alignment in his work, when they all happen close in time to each other, in his work, that's one of the most bearish things you can have. And all I can say is his stuff has failed repeatedly on the rally, but this one so far has worked. And if it does work, it calls for a very sizable drop. This is the wave count I have. I have an A. I'm going to erase these parentheses pretty soon. I still want us to undercut this low. But I'm calling this blue B, and I have us in blue C. The one thing that was missing was that blue A acted like an impulse, and blue C wasn't. I said that might change, and this certainly looks like we have an impulsive action. Wave C often has a Fibonacci relationship to wave A, and if it's equal, we'll stop around 35.94, which is right at the top of this peak here, which is often the support level. Doesn't mean it has to happen. We have all these other stopping off points too, but we're still on the Fed whipsaw target. There's a new Fed meeting this week, but until that happens, this remains a valid pattern. Doesn't always work, but it works often. The announcement price was 42.3393. First move down, 69 handles. Next move up was about 312 handles. And once we significantly undercut this price, 42.3393, we typically drop more than 311.92 handles, which puts us under 39.2201. Which is compatible with this number I get here. This is the wave count I had been using. We don't know if it's the right count. It certainly isn't the only count. But if it's the right count, I think we'll find out early tomorrow, we're going to be in a third wave of multiple degree. And if that's right, that's when crashes happen. But that's not the only way to count it. I didn't change things that much. I moved brown B from here to here, and you can actually count wave magenta 3 as being complete. We could be in wave magenta 4. Still is a negative pattern. It doesn't say the pattern's over, but it doesn't call for a collapse. And if that's true, we'll consolidate here in a fourth wave of some degree. Just remember that if this is the right count, we undercut this, we're in a third wave of multiple degree and all bets are off. Now we do have this recovery, but it really has to hold to avoid a disaster here. Well, that might be too strong. It has to hold if you want more of a recovery. We do have a volume spike. It's associated with lows. This says futures are up 19 handles. We're way under the Bollinger Band. What I'd like for us to do is not have a collapse here. What I'd like for us to do is to hit this sloping trend line from below, or at least hit the point at which we broke under the trend line. That's resistance, and usually when you have a sloping trend line and you break through in a straight line, usually you're going to retrace to the line. That's what I'd like to see, but I don't always get what I like, and we should know at the open what's going to happen. This is a wall into the close. It's right at resistance. If we gap over it and break through resistance, I think we could have a decent recovery. I would trust that volume spike in the last wave count I showed. But if we gap under this, we have a possible crash. Tomorrow's pattern has the early low. We could gap up. Typically it's a rally day with a final hour high. Early weakness usually leads to more weakness regardless of how the rest of the day goes. Signals are mixed. You know the rules. It's positive. We gap down, hit a lower low, closed over all the lows. If it's maintained through tomorrow's opening action, good chance we have the normal rally day. There's also a volume spike in the E-mini contract, and that's associated with lows. Of course, you could have more volume tomorrow. You don't know. There's also a wave count, not the only count for sure, compatible with at least a short-term low and some kind of consolidation here. But it is bearish. We have a wall into the close. We stopped right at the MEJT target from 2 months ago. Walls into the close have a high incidence of gapping down and promptly undercutting the origin of the move. And if we gap down under the origin of this move after being up so much in futures, that would be quite negative. So if we gap under today's low, we have the makings of one of the biggest point declines in history, with a huge volume spike likely to accompany it. In the current environment, long-term patterns seem more important to meet in day-to-day moves. We have almost all we need to confirm we've made a major high. I still want to see some prior lows of significance undercut, but that seems a mere formality at this time. So keep your fingers crossed. I'd like to see us recover this and have a better opportunity to initiate a short position. But if we gap over this, we could still reverse it promptly and invalidate it. But if we gap under this, there's everything you need for a collapse. I'm not predicting that will happen. I think those are pretty rare things, but they happen in third waves of multiple degree. And if we break under this, I think that's the most likely count. And that is today's call.